June. June. I like June. I really do. Well, what's that phrase? I loved a girl named June once. No, wait, twice. I don't even know where that's from. But 5 months in, and at this point, I'm either a god or a goat. And I'm happy to say I'm kind of a god. June is a monitor month, I guess, in a lot of ways. Before I go too far, as I do at every one of these videos, if this is the first time you're watching me, I'm Dave. Hey, thanks, glad to have you. If you're back, hey, welcome back. But just so you know, I am geographically just outside of St. Louis. So you need to understand that where I'm at geographically is what's working for me right now. And probably if you are like way north, way south, take everything with a grain of salt. But most people say take everything Dave says with a grain of salt. But I do my best. And also I want to tell you, this is 2026, June 2026. So this is kind of an unusual year. We started out this year so crazy fast. By the last week of February, I had 10 frames of bees on every one of my hives. And I think it was at that point, I was at 20. I'm at 32 right now. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm looking, and it's end of February, and there's pollen coming in. So, I've been dumping supers on hives since then. I did my first extraction. I think I talked about that in my May video, and the end of April. Right now it is right at the very beginning of June, and I've extracted I think right at 600 pounds. That's crazy for us this time of year, but it's the kind of year we're having. Then we went through a little bit of a dearth. I've been dealing with that. And then again, I mentioned it in my May video, I had an epic failure with demaraying hives. I've done it before. I've had great success with it, but only when I did it with a few hives and I had the time and ability to be doing all the manipulation that it takes to be successful with a demaray, and didn't work. But I do currently have 10 Nook boxes spread over 2 bee yards. So I've got lots and lots of resources. Here's the beauty of it. All those swarmed really early in April. In the third week April anyway. So then we went through a little bit of a dearth for about 2 weeks. So I really didn't miss that much of the honey flow. And in June right now, we're still going kaboom. The amount of heavy butts I see coming in, that's not the local Walmart. No, that's in my hives. The nectar is crazy. So we've got probably another 4, maybe probably 6 weeks of heavy flow going on right now. And I am just starting to get the foraging bees that swarmed in early April, and that was about 6-7 hives. Those foraging bees are now just starting to go out. So timing has worked interesting this year, not like I expected it to, but so that's where we're at. I'm a mess here. Pardon that. Talked about the fact that we were extracting, and one of my favorite things, and I've got lots of videos on them, is wax. I just love rendering wax. So I've got my wax set up. I've got a video on how to render wax that will take you through that whole process. It's too bad YouTube hasn't come up with smell-o-vision, because God, that smells so good. Okay, so June, what are we gonna do in June? June is, as I said here, it's kind of a fun month. One thing I am doing though, and is critically important, is that right away this week, I am doing Varroxan. And I was doing Varroxan again at the end of last week in May. Critically important to be putting Varroxan on the hives early for me. That's part of my integrated pest management process. I've said this before to a lot of people. I don't know if I've ever said it on my videos, but when I first started doing beekeeping back in 2015, we treated for Varroa mites usually right after Thanksgiving and right after Christmas. And those 2 times pretty much knocked any that were in the hive down. We never even had the issues. Everything seemed fine. It's not like that. I'm basically treating year round now. And my first line of defense is Varroxan. I'm treating every one of my hives. And the reason for that is that if one's got it, they've all got it. My numbers are low. I want to keep them low. Varroxan will do that. And that's the beauty of that system. So I will put Varroxan on every hive to keep my hive levels extremely low. I've spot checked And I'm finding counts that are just like very, 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 very low. And I talked about the fact that I've got 10 hives that swarmed. I know which hives those were, so I'm going to get a brood break there as well. So it's important for me to get the Varroa on in that brood break, because I'm going to then be knocking down any mites that are in the hive. I'm going to have all that brood from the old queen hatch. There's a break in between when the new queen is not laying, and you've got that sweet spot. So what you're basically doing is getting the maximum benefit out of Varroa by being in between that in those brood breaks. So I want to hit that for all those hives, but just keep my mite counts really low. And that's important for June, because June is about the time it starts to ramp up, and it ramps up until you get to August. And then if you're not treating, treat, because Varroa is just insane. Hopefully one day we're going to have Varroa resistant queens. We're going to get on top of this, but as it stands right now, if you're not treating, you're in for trouble. So I'm going to do that. I am monitoring supers. I need to monitor supers closely right now because we're in this flow. For me, it's kind of an issue, because if you do the numbers, I mean, I'm a pretty small operation, but at 30 hives, and on average, I know for sure I've got 2 supers on every single hive right now. I've got a lot of supers that have 3 on them, and the fact that if you need to keep throwing supers on, you can run out real fast. As I said, I've been extracting. As I extract, I put them back on the hive. So I want to monitor supers just to make sure that I've got what I need. Remember, I said I've got 10 nooks. 10 nooks. You know, and I did a video on a nook system that I use, and I've talked about it. I use nooks as support staff, and they work great for that. So I'm going to be supering nooks, because I can then take nooks, put blank frames in them, and they are wax making machines. So I will put blank honey supers on those hives, and they will fill them. Also, and I did this video a couple weeks ago, talking about, I did simple comb. I've got simple comb on a hive right now, a nook. I'm kind of watching that. They're just building up, but I'm starting to see the bees really starting to attack that. So I'm liking that. And I will put a lot of simple comb, 5-frame simple combs on booming hives, because they will fill this out in a heartbeat. And the other reason I do that then is I'm not committing a honey super on a hive to cut comb. I just am looking for honey. So it works out great that way. So I'm monitoring supers, and also I'm looking at probably the week of the 14th or 15th or whatever that is there, that I will more than likely need to do a quick extraction. Not so much that I need the honey. I've got backed up enough honey to get through these 3 markets that I've got coming up this month, but for the fact that I need the supers. And you don't want to miss any opportunity. So if you've got a full super, for me, I pull that super off, extract it, put it right back on the hive. So the bees are maximizing this honey flow. If the bees don't have a place to put honey, they're not going to make honey for you. So the bees don't have a place to make honey, they're not going to make honey for you. Follow that logic. Anyway, so that's kind of this month, is I'm going to be supering nooks, I'm going to be extracting, I'm going to be monitoring, and at the end of the month, I am going to do a mite check, and just to be sure that my hives are all where they need to be. Other than that, it's kind of a make sure your hives are okay sort of thing. I will do some deep dives only on hives that I know swarmed, just to see that there is a good solid pattern from the new virgin queen that's in. And if there isn't, well, we'll take action and make sure that we can requeen that hive, whether I do it through one of my nooks, which usually I do, or going out and buying one. We'll see about that. But that's this month, and it's just kind of a go with the flow. Make sure your hives have what they need, and if you get a chance in there, do I sound out of breath? I was in hives for 4 hours this morning. Yeah, I'm a little worn out, but again, all good news. I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are enjoying your bees. If you have bees, if you're not, think about it. Anyway, so that's what we've got For the month of June, just a quick one because this for me is an in-between month. It's a monitor and I'm kind of enjoying a little bit of a break. And I've got projects too. So all this wood down here, paint and other stuff. The beekeeper's wife, Joy, is starting her floral business. She just received her Illinois Professional Florist Association certificate. I think that's what it is. You can catch on what she's doing on her Facebook page, Joy Creates. And man, she's really good at what she does. So I'm building her a really cool bench for arranging flowers that will go up back because she has some beautiful cut flowers as well. Enough of that. I'm proud of her if you couldn't tell. So that's what we got. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't hit that like button, please do, because I always say it's just nice to be liked. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button, we appreciate that as well. And as always, hey, just happy beekeeping. If we need to, take a little bit of a breath this month too, because it's been a wild ride. See you next time.